Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Karen Dalton, and I'm running against Scott Perry in the Republican primary in the 10th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. I wanted to speak to you this morning about data centers and the legislation I will propose if the voters of this district, the 10th, give me permission to serve them in Congress. I served in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives as a staff attorney for over 25 years. 20 of those years were as counsel to the House Judiciary Committee. I was the prime drafter of many pieces of legislation through which the General Assembly sought to protect its citizens. In addition, I watched the General Assembly regulate emerging industries, such as medical marijuana and gaming, in order to strike a balance between the needs of the emerging industry and the right of the people to lead safe and secure lives. I bring my experience working as a staff attorney, in which I saw principled Republican leadership on a daily basis, to my view of the kind of leadership this district needs at the congressional level. This is why I'm proposing that Congress provide comprehensive legislation to regulate the emerging industry of data centers and artificial intelligence, or AI. Data centers and artificial intelligence can't be separated. They go hand in hand. Data centers are simply a way of delivering artificial intelligence. And we see AI encroaching on more and more of our areas of our lives all the time, some of it to our detriment. The CEO of Anthropic, Dario Modi, recently published an essay entitled "The Adolescence of Technology," in which he described how powerful AI currently is and how powerful it's going to be within the next 2 years. Mr. Modi warned that AI is now smarter than any Nobel laureate. He stated that AI can interface with any technological device which humans could interface with. Further, AI can direct the technology of other beings. AI can direct the work of other technology like robots, and it can write its own code. In other words, AI can now put the people who created it out of work. Block, the financial technology company that owns Square, Cash, App, and Tidal, just laid off 40% of its workforce. The head of Block, Jack Dorsey, predicted other companies would join his in turning to AI to replace human beings. When announcing layoffs, Mr. Dorsey said, "Within the next year, I believe the majority of companies will reach the same conclusion and make similar structural changes." Workers lost their jobs at Block even though the company was profitable. We have also been warned by economists that once we have self-driving vehicles, long-haul truckers, taxi drivers, and Uber drivers will all be put out of work. I believe this reality is instructive. There is simply no area where AI won't touch our economic lives and the stability of our workforce. Then there is the danger to privacy which AI poses. We recently saw the battle between the Pentagon and the AI company Anthropic over the use of its AI. The Pentagon wanted to be free to use the AI any way it wanted to, and Anthropic did not want to use its product in domestic surveillance. They lost the contract with the Pentagon. We have also seen bots such as Claude, developed by Anthropic, verbally assault users with sexually explicit language. And we are all too familiar with the bot that complimented the teenager and how well he made the noose with which he would later hang himself. Then there are the data centers themselves. As we begin the month of March, Pennsylvania has 11 data centers currently in operation and 21 data centers planned. These data centers are located throughout the Commonwealth, from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, from Lackawanna County to Cumberland County. They are projected to both be in rural and urban settings. One such data center is planned 5 miles from my house in Middlesex Township. I first became aware of data centers as a homeowner and a citizen. I wanted to find out more about them, and what I found disturbed me greatly. Data centers will have a profound impact on our environment, on our electric bills, and on the purity and sufficiency of our water supply. The Commonwealth's current set of laws simply do not address the far-reaching consequences. Indeed, the municipality's planning code places limits on the governing body of a municipality. A township cannot reject a lawful use. Further, the open meetings law does not protect the right of the citizens from outside the township in which the data center is proposed to offer comments. I know this firsthand. I attended a meeting of the governing body of a nearby township which was considering a data center. The governing body cited the open meetings law when they did not allow me to speak during the public comment period. I did later provide written remarks to them, but I sure would have liked to have been able to speak to them eye to eye and face to face. I am sure Pennsylvania is not the only state that's lacking the necessary body of law to properly regulate data centers. A review of the National Conference of State Legislatures website indicates that most states do not regulate data centers in a comprehensive way. Further, according to NCSL, there are currently more than 5,000 data centers throughout the nation. Data centers are notorious for the energy consumption they need to power their racks of servers and for the need for water to cool those servers. Today, data centers consume 4% of the electricity in the United States. NCSL estimates that by 2030, that percentage will go up to 12%. If you look at the experience of other states like Colorado and Georgia, data centers have severely impacted the quality of life in those states. Data centers have had a profound effect on water in the communities in which surround them. If water comes out of the faucet at all, it's brown. Here at home, with the explosion of data centers, our electricity bills grow higher and higher. Even though the data centers are privately owned, somehow customers are shouldering the load and bearing the risk that there will be blackouts. In September 2025, the Wall Street Journal ran an article about this very phenomenon entitled, "Data Centers That Don't Exist Yet Are Already Haunting the Grid." According to the piece, the demand for electricity remained flat nationally through 2000, but started to rise in 2020 at about 2% per year across the nation. The surge was brought about by the frenzy to build data centers to power AI. According to the article, a search on a generative AI platform like ChatGPT, can use 10 times as much energy as a simple Google search. Several weeks ago, PJM's independent market monitor, monitoring analytics, filed a complaint with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. The independent monitor stated that PJM does not have enough capacity to deliver enough electricity to data centers. The monitor believes no data center should be approved unless and until enough electricity can be provided to the data center without hurting residential customers. Otherwise, we will experience blackouts. In other words, the independent monitor is telling FERC that the demand for electricity exceeds supply. Further, the independent monitor is telling us that the rising cost of electricity is due to data centers, the additional transmission lines, and the hardware needed to supply data centers is driving up the cost of energy for ratepayers, even though the data centers are privately owned. What is clear is that even though data centers are owned by some of the wealthiest corporations and provide a product, AI, which is being sold and marketed by companies such as Meta, Google, and OpenAI, we are stuck with the bill. And the risk of blackouts, and with the larger risks to our health, economy, and well-being. This is why I am proposing that Congress regulate data centers by providing a blueprint for every state in the country, and those states must follow it if they're going to approve and build data centers. The legislation I would propose builds upon the decades-long tradition found in Pennsylvania, which prioritizes protecting the environment when dealing with proposals to develop land. Article 1, Section 27 of the Pennsylvania Constitution states that the people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. I've read the case law interpreting these cases and this provision, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court is very clear. We, the citizens of this great Commonwealth, have a right to clean air and pure water, and to have the environment preserved, not just for this generation, but for generations to come. Clean air and pure water and the natural beauty of our environment are held in trust for us by both state government and local government. So that must be our starting point. All 50 states must put the protection of the environment first, the safety of the water supply first, the purity of the air first. We must also protect the economic security of the citizens and put our quality of life first. I mentioned that I spent over 25 years as a staff attorney in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. During that time, I saw the General Assembly regulate major industries in Pennsylvania, from casino gambling to fracking to medical marijuana. The General Assembly made sure these industries gave us something back. The fracking industry had to pay an impact fee so that roads could be fixed and landowners compensated. Casino operators had to pay a non-refundable license fee of $50 million. Fees were imposed on grower processors of medical marijuana. A portion of those fees went to pay for treatment of drug abuse and to local police departments. When it comes to data centers, there must be similar guidance coming out of Washington. Therefore, I propose that no state be allowed to permit the construction or operation of data centers unless it enacts a state statute which contains the following elements. Failure to do so would subject the state to a loss of federal dollars. Specifically, the statute must require 1. That state sales tax apply to the construction of data centers. 2. That the state assess a licensing fee of $75 million to $100 million per building on the owner/operator of the data center. 3. That the state establish a surcharge on the percentage of electricity and water used by the data center in order to offset any increase in the electricity and data center bills of the community housing the data centers. 4. That the state establish a fund from the licensing fee to fix roads and pay for noise abatement and light abatement so that homeowners do not lose the value or enjoyment of their lands. 5. That the state enact legislation to enable all citizens affected by the data center to offer public comment. At minimum, the state must ensure 3 public hearings to be held by the state's agency responsible for the environmental safety of the state, and that those hearings be available online, and that there be a stenographic record. 6, that the state's agency responsible for environmental safety issue a certificate of environmental safety before a data center can be built. In order to issue such a certificate, the agency must determine that the data center will not consume so much water or use so much electricity as to place residents at risk of undergoing a significant loss of either. Further, the agency must determine that the residents will not experience spiking electric bills or blackouts. The state must also determine, by a thorough review of the owner-operator's plans, that the natural beauty of the environment will not be substantially damaged. 7, that the data center use a significant percentage from solar and wind in order to power its operations. 8, that there be a plan to restore the land once the technology provided by the data center is obsolete. The state's agency responsible for environmental safety must ensure that there is a practicable plan to dismantle the data center and reclaim the land once the data center ceases to be operational. The cost to be borne by the owner-operator of the data center. In addition, my proposal would require the state to make significant changes to both its criminal and civil laws in order to protect citizens from the risks posed by AI. These provisions would also be enacted by Congress so that if someone commits a crime by using AI, it is possible they can be prosecuted both on the state level and on the federal level. The state would follow the model of federal legislation, which would be enacted to address bad actors, whether they be individuals or corporations. Specifically, federal law would be amended to create the new crime of unlawful use of artificial intelligence. That crime would make it unlawful to use AI to commit sex crimes, financial crimes, or any other type of crime. The legislation would apply to both individuals and companies. The legislation would require enhanced criminal penalties for the use of AI when conducting criminal acts. In addition to criminal penalties, severe civil penalties would be assessed on companies which permit individuals to engage in unlawful behavior by either being negligently or willfully ignorant. The company would face substantial fines. My proposal would also create a federal fund of at least $100 billion to reclaim farmland and other land which was used to house data centers that have become obsolete. One of the dangers that data centers pose is eating up our farmland. One farmer told me there's simply no land to buy. States would apply for grants in order to draw down the money. A surcharge would be assessed by the federal government on the owner, operator, builder of the data center. Additionally, civil penalties assessed on the data centers under the new federal law would also go into the fund. Finally, Congress will establish an office akin to the Congressional Budget Office to advise Congress and the states regarding issues associated with AI and data centers. The agency will be tasked with keeping abreast of the latest developments in AI and data centers so that Congress and states are no longer caught off guard. This agency will propose legislation to both Congress and to the states in order to keep up with the latest developments. Without comprehensive regulation, I'm afraid that data centers and AI will cause harm to the environment, to our economy, and to our way of life. We must act now before it's too late. That's why, if I'm permitted to serve the people of the 10th District in Congress, I will propose this legislation right after I take the oath of office. Thank you very much.